Okay. Well, we will go ahead and get started today. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome. My name is Leah McGrath and I serve as the Executive Director of GovRAMP. And this is our third working group session this year. We had one in April, one in May. And as the team and I were talking and preparing today, while it's our third working group session, it kind of feels like the 10th working group session. So it may feel that way for you. A lot has happened since the last time we were together on May 9th. And so we're going to walk through today, kind of summarize a little bit of what's happened, try to give some thoughts and commentary in terms of what we are watching. We want to hear from all of you in terms of, what's interesting to you, what questions you have. And as always, if you have ideas or suggestions for GovRAMP, we want to hear those too. So, having said that, because of the number of participants we're expecting today, you will notice that your microphone is on mute, but we very much invite and encourage you to participate using the Q&A function. So please post a question, post an idea. We will try to answer those and address those comments as we go throughout today's presentation. But without further ado, we will hop on in because, as I mentioned, a lot has happened since we last got together on May 9th. One of the things that if you are following the FedRAMP working groups, you've noticed that really the conversation has kind of diverged into two buckets, which we talked a little bit about in May, and that is a focus on Rev 5 and a focus on the pilot, the 20X pilot. So we are going to talk a little bit today. We'll break down our findings, not findings, but just our observations and kind of reporting out to all of you on what's happening in that way as well. But today I am joined by some incredible, hit the wrong button, some incredible colleagues. And so I will just have them introduce themselves to you briefly, starting with Jessica, and then we'll go to David and Alan.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Jessica Van Erdy. I'm the COO and General Counsel for StateRAMP. And I will just say this whole entire transition through the FedRAMP world has been quite the introduction. And as Leah said, it's a learn as fast as you can, as much as you can. So we're really excited to share with you what we're hearing, what we're learning, and welcome any questions that you guys have, whether that's today or after the meeting. And with that, I'll pass it over to David.
I'm David Ressler. I'm the director of the GovRAMP PMO. And I just wanted to say it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you all today and let us know if there's any observations you have you'd like to share or more insight on, especially as it may impact GovRAMP. Alan.
Hey, I'm Alan Deininger with the GovRAMP PMO as well. I'm an information security engineer. Just excited to help service providers and anybody else to try and navigate this FedRAMP and GovRAMP world.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so as we get into the discussion, again, please invite you to use that Q&A functionality. But Jessica, if you'd like to maybe just give us a little bit of an update in terms of kind of how things have settled.
Absolutely. So as Leah mentioned at the beginning of the call, we started with 4, I believe, working groups. And what we found, what FedRAMP found, was that the majority of the conversation really circled around Rev 5 and then the 20X pilot. And so a decision was made by FedRAMP to go ahead and kind of reduce down the extra working groups and move everything over to these 2 topic areas. So you can view the FedRAMP project plan if you want to get really into the nitty gritty at the link that we have here for you. But with Rev 5, really is a focus now on looking at how do we ground all of the Rev 5 authorization and monitoring processes into modern security practices, right? The goal there really being that they want to deliver better service and they want things to have better speed and receptivity to the current marketplace. And then we had the 20X pilot, which of course, focuses on exploring how FedRAMP can rely on those automated validations. And then We have both the GitHub links here. Those are the same GitHub links across the board, just so that you know, and then ultimately a Zoom registration link for each of the different town halls. Again, we go to these things so that you don't feel like you have to attend, but certainly if you want to attend to hear these things directly, we of course welcome your involvement. That's how we feel like you can come to these and help inform us of the things that matter to you most. Additionally, I want to point to, we had posted a tale of Two Efficiencies on LinkedIn, and I really would love for anybody that's interested to go back and read that again. And so I'm going to just drop the link into I believe the Q&A here. If I can pull that back up, I had it up and then it went away. And that way you all can go back when you have some free time and read that article. I think that you'll find we said some of these things a while ago, and it's interesting to look at how we were wrapping back around to that. I think that kind of covers overall where we're at right now and how things have shaken out, but I will open the floor certainly to Leah, David, and Alan if there's anything I missed or anything they would like to add to these two topics.
I think that was a great summary, Jessica.
I fully agree. As you get into, I think Jessica mentioned that this roadmap, and I know David dropped the link into the Q&A, so you can have the direct link here. But I should have noted, we will be sharing this presentation. We're recording it. You're going to see it posted on our website, on the working group page. We will also send an email out, so you'll have a copy of this presentation with the links as well. But we'll drop the links into the Q&A chat as we go. With the roadmap, this is something you can take a look at directly. But David, maybe these are some of the highlights, I think, for us as we were looking at the roadmap in terms of what stood out for what's coming.
Absolutely. And I first just want to say I love the transparency that FedRAMP is putting out as far as where their vision is going to be taking them soon. The phase one timing runs now through October, and then the phase two will kind of overlap with it from September through December. But one thing that I picked up on while I was reading through the roadmap the other day was line 20 in the roadmap, which anyone who has gone through FedRAMP Rev 5 will hopefully appreciate this one. And that's a note regarding the FIPS cryptography module applications. And I would encourage everybody to open up the roadmap and click on line 20 and read the notes regarding it, about the applicability of FIPS 140-3 encryption to systems servicing the government and where it's not. Because it's signaling ahead of time a new approach that FedRAMP is taking regarding cryptography, which anyone who's filled out Appendix Q, I think, will definitely appreciate.
There is more, thank you, on just timing. I just ditto. We applaud the transparency here. It's helpful to see, kind of the timing and even to kind of plan our time out as we think about what's coming. And so one of the things that, if you've been following this very long, you've seen they've been dropping a lot of requests for comments in addition to the working groups and the comments that are happening on GitHub. And this has been really helpful as well. You can see actually since May 9th, there were 3 additional RFCs posted and have already closed. So that's the comment I would make. You really have to pay attention. They are open only for 30 days. They are really following a tight timeline. So when they open the comments, they're closed in 30 days. And then we are seeing a day or two later, they're publishing. So I think one of the lessons for me, and I'll admittedly have not been very good at this, but is to comment early in the process if you can, because it does appear that any input that they are taking in is going to happen early because they are turning that publication around so quickly. So stay tuned on that. One of the other things that we saw on the roadmap was you could see what else is coming soon. And this was really helpful. So we've had these closed comments that you can see on the left, there is a current open request for comment that is open just for 2 more days. So that closes June 22nd. Take a look at it. Coming soon in the next 30 days, there are several RFCs that we are anticipating based on the roadmap that has been published. So these are all things to be looking forward to. And again, some of them are related to Rev 5, some are related to 20X, and some are a little bit in between, right, David? So, so
Yes.
we're trying to make sure we tease that out as we go. Just thinking about some of the comments that we've been providing and seen out there, 3 that actually came and went since our last working group were the continuous reporting standard, significant change notification standard, and the scope interpretation technical assistance. Alan, if you want to give, I know overall, I think what we would all say is job well done. I think there have been a lot of positive reactions to some of these requests for comments that are bringing forward some things we were excited to see. So Alan, if you just want to give a few of these highlights.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick highlight. For the first one here, for the continuous reporting standard, definitely appreciate provision 9 specifically. This enables providers to leverage this reporting for other customers, especially those participating with GovRAMP and across the SLTT markets. So providers may provide that documentation if they see fit and if it doesn't impact their confidentiality, integrity, and availability of their system. And then the second one here, definitely sending kudos out for the significant change notification standard. But we do recommend adding AI as another type of significant change, just based on our learnings from the GovRAMP AI Security Task Force. We've been having a lot of good discussions there and learning that AI is definitely a big change, especially with how that's being implemented in some tools. And then the last one here, some really nice work on that scope interpretation technical assistance. We really appreciate the in scope and out of scope for integration provisions, which align really well with how GovRAMP has approached this. And for those that are still out of scope, GovRAMP still does offer, for provisionally authorized, we still offer that snapshot for those third-party tools.
Absolutely. Anything else to add to that, Jessica or David?
No.
I think Alan covered it.
All right. Well, we will be paying close attention to the other RFCs that will be dropping, but some of these, especially I know our team talked last time, and I'm sure we'll continue to discuss some of those significant change notification standards. I think, David, are some things that I can envision will be rolling into our program as well. So I think that's exciting to see. Anytime we can provide clarity, it's a good thing. So we certainly appreciate the collaboration across our members. Okay, so moving into the Rev 5 discussion, now we're going to break it down into Rev 5 and 20X pilot. So as we think about Rev 5, that's the current process. That is still the current process to become authorized. And it's also what aligns really well with GovRAMP's program. So as we've been thinking about the iterations and the things that are coming, there is a thread on GitHub, which is where the working group discussion happens for FedRAMP. That's really around that balancing act, that balancing FedRAMP Rev 5 against the improvements to FedRAMP 20X. And so kind of going back to that tale of Two Efficiencies, or John, I'm still cracking up. It was the best of ramps. It was the worst of ramps, right? So as we're thinking about, thank you for your comment in the thread. But as we're thinking about, all the changes that are happening in the federal environment, we have certainly been very forthright in that GovRAMP is here to help, right? To really complement the efforts, especially as more of the authorizations and especially more of that continuous monitoring responsibility is being pushed down to agencies to really manage. That is where GovRAMP can really fit in well. And so, if there are providers who are interested, if you've got both FedRAMP and you participate with GovRAMP, or you're just thinking about doing that, we would welcome your participation to have conversations with federal agency stakeholders to understand how can we best serve all the different levels of government and be that facilitator, just as we do for states and local governments, right? It's never about, you can't delegate accountability, and decision-making always stays with the agencies and our participating governments. But if we can help reduce that burden by helping with that management of continuous monitoring and really streamlining the efforts, we hope for both the provider community and our participating governments, we want to do that. And so we think we're in a position to help as we balance that Rev 5 versus, where we are today and where we need to go in the future. So I would just invite and put that call out to everyone on the call. If you are interested in being a part of a pilot and being a part of discussions with how we can do that, please reach out. The other conversation around Rev 5 has been related, and this is not just a request for comment, David. This is actually published now, right? It is in effect or coming into effect soon. The updated significant change notification requirements. So David, I'll let you speak to that and add anything that I may have missed.
So yeah, this is one of those cases where some of the things that we're seeing come out of 20X are getting backported into revision 5. And we wanted to specifically call out the significant change notification. And I believe John indicated some opportunity for clarity around this with GovRAMP. If there is one of these changes that's coming out of 20X that you will probably see GovRAMP adopt and embrace sooner than later, it's going to be around the significant change process, because FedRAMP has taken a very pragmatic approach to significant change and modernizing that process. And it's probably the one of their guidance documents that they've published that I appreciate the most. They've really broken it down into 4 types of changes: an impact categorization change, which will require a reassessment; an adaptive change that is just changing the makeup of the program or the software that's being done, that just requires notification and incorporation in the next annual assessment; a transformative change, which is where a major component is changed out, most often a non-conforming component towards a conforming component that just requires notification; and a routine change like patch management and such that doesn't even require the notification. I think it's a very simplified and pragmatic approach. As John pointed out, there are some guidance requirements that are vague, and I think that's an opportunity for, and I agree with John, an opportunity for GovRAMP to provide clarity, at least for our members, on what those examples would be. Alan mentioned earlier the one that struck me the most, and as he mentioned, it comes directly from our AI task force, so a needless plug for that task force if you want to join. Over and over we heard with that task force about products that are currently authorized that don't have AI in it today, that tomorrow an update happens and now AI is enabled, and getting notification to participating governments, participating clients of that change. And we would definitely suggest an update to this document that explicitly cites that as an example. Other than that, I think it's pretty solid as it is. We just need more examples to follow. What did I miss?
No, I think you covered it well. I was going to invite John, who posted the question around significant change, and any others out there, if you have suggestions or recommendations around kind of what you see as needing clarity or that would be important for us to consider, please reach out, share that with us. And that was really the only ad I had. So I will stop there. Anything else to the team on the Rev 5? Because now we're headed into where the majority of the discussion and the working groups, and certainly some of the documents that they've published recently, are focused, which is in that 20X pilot. So Jessica, I will invite you if you'd like to kind of walk through just high level what we're seeing in terms of the pilot and the guidance.
Absolutely. So I did just drop in the Q&A in case anybody wants it as a friendly reminder, the 20X goals. So there's a link to that. And again, as Leah said, when you'll get this PowerPoint, you'll also have that link within this document. So as we started this by saying, it has been a very busy several weeks. And so the comments on 20X's KSIs did close at the end of last month. And then very shortly thereafter, as you can see, FedRAMP went ahead and published the 20X KSIs as well as quite a few other documents. So we have a number of guidance and standard documents that were published, as well as updated guidance and external FedRAMP project information documents that were published. I will say in our conversations around these, some of these still remain a little bit vague and probably are going to need some refinement. But ultimately, it is a lot of information. It has been a lot that is been put forth in front of everyone related to this pilot. As an ask that we do want to have, and then I'm going to turn it over to the rest of the team, just kind of weigh in on any high points they might want to elaborate on. If you are participating in the 20X pilot, we would absolutely love to hear more. We'd love to have you share your experience, kind of just gather some information about how that's working, what you see as really going well, maybe areas that you would like to see a little different. Again, all in the endeavor of improving whatever it is we do here at GovRAMP. So I am going to drop in the Q&A. A friendly reminder to please reach out to us and Leah's email address, where if you just send an email to her, we will schedule time to meet with you one-on-one to have those conversations. And with that, I'm going to open the floor to my esteemed colleagues and see if they wanted to add anything else about the pilot guidance.
I know we're going to talk a little bit about the criteria for the pilot. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Jessica?
The criteria to be part of the pilot?
Yes.
I welcome you to speak about it, David, if you want. I think you know more about it than I do.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So to participate in the pilot currently, it is capped to low impact systems. They require all of your documentation and your KSIs to come over in a machine readable format. And to be able to evidence the KSIs that way. There still is the requirement for a 3PAO to be involved in the assessment, and it's currently only open to those organizations that have an existing SOC 2, Type 2 report for that product. So if your organization meets those criteria, you're eligible to participate and submit your package that way.
Yep. So as we think a little bit more around the discussion around the pilot, if you are on the GitHub, if you go in, you can follow quite a bit. There's a lot about the pilots and Q&As that are constantly happening. So we know we're going to learn a lot through this process. I think the main point, David, that we've seen has really been around the KSIs. That has been the center and really the biggest shift, I think, from Rev 5 to 20X. If you want to talk a little bit about the KSIs and kind of how they're approaching it, that might be interesting.
Yeah, so the KSIs kind of mark a departure from the traditional 853 control set. But FedRAMP has provided a mapping of how they believe the KSIs do map back to some of the 853 controls. So what we're seeing is, and especially with a low impact system, it's a very small subset of the traditional 853 control set that you see. And one of our recommendations behind that is when looking at the KSIs and the controls that they map to, is look at the MITRE attack framework that GovRAMP has adopted, where you actually see which controls have material impact on a system and which ones have negligible, if any, impact on a system. By taking that viewpoint, I believe that you get a better accuracy of which KSIs are impactful and which ones truly aren't. They just sound good. So it's one of those things where I definitely recommend, look at that additional data-driven approach to see, are these KSIs truly a security indicator or not?
I think it's a great point. And one of the pieces of recommendation that we made, because, we sit in such, I love what we do. I love the members that we work with, because we sit in between often the industry, the security teams and compliance teams, but also the end user at the government side who's trying to digest so much information. This is not a one-to-one. This is not, one government person working with one vendor trying to have a conversation. This is one to many for both parties, right? From industry, they serve multiple agencies, and agencies work with multiple companies. And so one of the things that we've had some discussion around that I think could be really interesting for us to really think more about too is how do we help make those monthly reports or continuous reporting? Hopefully we get to that point, right, where it's really meaningful. And if the KSIs are weighted in a way that, David, to your point, if we've got that MITRE ATT&CK framework layered on, if we're weighting it based on risk protection values, then it could make that reporting even more meaningful, so that I understand, okay, well, not all KSIs are created equally, right, in
Yes.
terms of risk.
Yeah.
And I could be, just doing fantastic across the board, but I have one, that doesn't sound so bad, that's not doing okay, that's performing a little more less than stellar, but that one might be really, really critical to the security defense of that system. And so I think I really really appreciate the leadership that we've had at GovRAMP on our standards and technical committee, on our appeals committee, on our steering committee and board that have really tried to steer us toward a more data-driven approach. One of the other things I was thinking, David, as you were talking, that I would love for the FedRAMP office or the ONCD, pick your acronym. I would love for someone to really take on, and maybe it falls to us, I don't know, but that ongoing effort of aggregating that data to continue the efforts that we've seen there, because I think, we know so much more now, and to be able to make this information that we are helping facilitate in that sharing more impactful, I think a weighted approach makes a lot of sense. But certainly starting with data.
Yes, absolutely. And I think another important point to talk about on this topic, and it's something that came up in the Q&A with the FedRAMP director, was just getting a bead on agency acceptance of the 20X pilot and such. And there was a non-answer there to some extent of, they're working with agencies, trying to bring them up to speed on what the 20X program is and accomplishing. There was indication that, yes, agencies are very interested in getting faster authorizations and getting through the FedRAMP process faster. But on the contrary side of that is agencies such as the DoD and DHS that are more security conscious, they're going to take some more time to get on board.
And the other things that I know we've had a lot of conversation here, and I think we missed a bullet point here, but is around framework harmonization. And so framework harmonization continues to be a strategic initiative, and I would say it's really a strategic imperative for GovRAMP, meaning that there are so many different frameworks out there and federal requirements that really flow down and affect the industry, that flow down and affect state and local governments. So we're constantly talking about how do we do a better job of harmonizing them. And here's where I would say I was so excited to see Senator Peters and Senator Langford coming back this year with their framework harmonization legislation. I think that's important. But as we've said before here at GovRAMP, we're not going to wait for the federal government to do it. So we're trying to operationalize framework harmonization now. One of the concerns that I have had, which may be unfounded, you can all tell me that I'm just worrying unnecessarily, but is that these KSIs could become yet another framework, right? That could, may not marry up in the way that we need them to create better harmonization across all the different acronyms that exist out there, whether it's IRS Pub 1075 or, you know, HIPAA security rule, CMMC, CMS, and all the MARSI. Like we could keep going, right? FERPA and CJIS. And so all of those different frameworks really do have a significant impact on industry and on state governments in particular. And, you know, I was thinking as we were putting this together, how we had a symposium in March in DC where we talked about framework harmonization, and we had one of our state CIOs who's very engaged talking about the impact of all these different frameworks that often conflict, certainly don't talk to one another. And it really creates an environment where the states are just in perpetual audit, right? They have the CJIS auditors one year, the next year they have IRS, the next year they have the auditors from CMS and so forth. And so the cost to his state was $10 million annually because of the personnel and the technology that they've had to dedicate just for federal audits that really could be harmonized much more effectively if we could have this conversation. There's so many other boiling pots out there that often this is the one that you kind of go, oh, it's fine, it's just simmering enough. But I do think this is something that, you know, we certainly are cognizant of and think about is how do we continue to harmonize, to recognize the work that industry is doing in other areas to be able to bring that in, whether it's through fast track programs or pilots. And it's partially why we're trying to have that security or AI security task force, or it's very much why, is to get ahead of yet another framework creating, right? Let's just pull this in to what we're doing as applicable. And so that's something we've been talking about under FedRAMP. It should say FSMA because it certainly conforms with FSMA, but we're looking at the different things that that we're trying to do and really want to create that harmonization and synergy across the industry for our government members too. David, I know I'm going to get off of the my podium now because I get really passionate when I talk about that topic. So anything else that I missed here that you think we should point out?
I think, you know, the direction that we're trying to head, you know, if you look at the list under GovRAMP, it's a lot of different government oriented frameworks, and it really drives to our mission of assess once, use many. So whenever we can harmonize these frameworks and bring them together in such a way that it makes it easier for the assessed entity and the assessors, it simplifies things for government and reduces cost overall. So, you know, that's really the whole promise of framework harmonization, and I really believe we're on the right track for that.
Yeah. And we will be continuing to follow everything that's happening in the work session to try to be a part of that conversation and continue to keep harmonization where we can, right? So here's where we're going to turn it over to you. I know we have a few questions that we received that we can cover. But as we're asking these questions, if you think of something, if you have a comment, please drop it into the Q&A. We definitely want to hear from you. But we can kick it off. Is Jessica still on my screen?
I am.
Excellent.
My internet was disagreeable for a moment, but it did come back.
No, you're good. Well, and sometimes, you know, the screen moves. So one of the questions that we have received that, you know, Jessica and David, I'll ask you to speak to is, will GovRAMP accept FedRAMP 20X for fast track? For those who may not know, we have a fast track program now so that anyone who has had a RAR or SAR for FedRAMP that's that audit can use that as a fast track path to come into our GovRAMP program. And so that's a good question. Will GovRAMP accept 20X?
So I think it's really important to understand how GovRAMP operates, right? How we work generally to be able to answer that question. So much as, actually, I don't even think we would like this, but it might be easier sometimes for us to get together in a room and just say, this is how things are going to work. That's simply not how we operate at GovRAMP. So the very first thing we do is like what we're doing here today. We come to our members, both public and private sector. We say, what's working, what's not, what do we need, how do we improve? After we have a good, solid understanding of what the actual need is, we then have to go through our governance and our committee process. So we would have to take anything that we're coming through with a recommendation. So in this case, the request to have there be some form or fast track potentially for 20X to our standards and technical committee. They are going to well and truly vet whatever we bring them because they are signing off to say that this is going to meet the GovRAMP standard, whatever we're requesting. And once that happens, it then still has to go to the board, who's going to put that final yay or nay seal of approval on it. So it's not something that's going to get answered overnight. That's probably like the high level picture I could share. And then more from a process perspective or an actionable perspective, I'll pass that over to David for him to kind of weigh in on his thoughts.
So as we work with different participating governments and engage with them, one thing that we see over and over again is those governments that have created their own policies and such have, the NIST 853 is the foundation of those policies and those requirements. That is what our Rev 5 program is based on. And the 20X, as we mentioned earlier with the KSIs, kind of moves away from that model. So currently we are not taking 20X products through our fast track process. Once the pilot has completed and once the final list of KSIs have been published and they move forward in looking at moderate and such, we will definitely take a look at it. And we will look to see where it maps into our program and what gaps are left. It may be such a case that a 20X authorization maps into a GovRAMP core. It may be something else yet different. We don't know yet. And honestly, they don't either.
I think that's a great way to put that, David.
Hence pilot, right? So really looking
Yeah.
forward to everything that we learn through this. Great question. Another one, is GovRAMP going to allow SOC 2 Type 2? And Alan and David, we will send that one over to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, I can pick that up first. So how SOC 2 Type 2 aligns with what we're doing here at GovRAMP really depends on how the service provider scoped it. Since service providers actually have the ability to scope their SOC 2 Type 2 assessments. And then that goes straight into how the assessor assessed and what was actually laid out in the assessment test plan. So there's a lot of variance with SOC 2 Type 2s. So it's really difficult for us to bring that in and for us to recommend the use of that. However, you can absolutely utilize any evidence that you've collected and provided for that SOC 2 Type 2 assessment. And where it makes sense with what controls, you can absolutely reuse that evidence and provide it to us, depending on which control you're trying to answer. David, anything else there?
No, I think that's a great call out, Alan, in that the way those controls are assessed do vary between how GovRAMP looks at it. There's often some very prescriptive or descriptive requirements that the 853 has in it that the trust principles and the common criteria of a SOC 2 just do not have hard, fast requirements often. So the call out regarding you can utilize the same evidence provided to the SOC 2 assessors for GovRAMP is spot on. But having that assessor's opinion on control effectiveness, because they're looking at it against the common criteria and the trust principles versus the 853, it's a different lens. And, we just want to go back to the root of what was the evidence and does it assess with this test versus that test.
Okay. We had that question posted as well. So, Jerry, if we did not answer that adequately for you, please let us know, or reach out to us as well. But to sum it up, I would say, can absolutely utilize any evidence you provided for the SOC 2 Type 2 assessment for a GovRAMP snapshot or core status when you're thinking about that criteria. And in terms of the rest, it depends. Right, David and Alan? Okay.
Yes.
That sounds like a legal answer, Jessica. It depends.
It was a very good answer, yes.
Yeah. I don't see any other questions or comments right now. So this will be your last call to post a comment or question into the chat or into the Q&A feature. But we have scheduled our next GovRAMP working session. So that will be Friday, July 18th at 1 o'clock Eastern. We will be sending out information about that. If you register to attend this, you will be receiving emails with that detail. But you can also go to the working group webpage where we post videos of all of our working sessions, and you can also find more about the next meeting coming. We do have a comment here that I will read aloud. How about that? For the good of the group, and for the purpose of the video, so everyone can hear this. And then Alan and David, this will toss to you. As the use of APIs is very integral to cloud and can pose a significant exposure, how about requiring SPs be provided a standardized format for documenting API security? And it gives some examples. Documenting API security is not explicitly required in NIST 853, and if documented by the SP, is spread out among many controls without painting a clear picture. My recommendation is to add this as a tab to the OCM. I also have a recommendation for documenting the SBOM fully, which I don't see many SPs doing well.
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting idea of adding a tab for the APIs, or adding a set of tabs for the APIs. Currently, we do have a set of tabs for any of those integrations, because the way that GovRAMP team looks at those things, if you are integrating with an already FedRAMP or GovRAMP authorized system, the understanding is that those APIs have been assessed. If you're integrating in with a non-authorized system, that's really where a lot of these ideas come into play. So I really like this idea, and we're going to take a look at how we can operationalize that. Because at the same time, with APIs, often there's a lot of auxiliary documentation that comes with them and such. So I'd be interested, Stephen, if you're looking at it more from just a security lens, or if you're also just looking at it from other functionality within an API, such as the data that's flowing back and forth and such, because that's really where we get dig into on integrations and such, is especially when we're looking at, is it an in scope for calling out that it needs a snapshot, or is it a partner where you're just pulling in perhaps Department of Labor statistics data that doesn't require a snapshot.
Right. I think this is it's very relevant, in particular with our AI security task force. This is a comment I've heard a few times around the use of APIs and SBOMs becoming more important for us to understand when we think about the security impacts. So to that end, Stephen, if you'd like to join us, I had to scroll up with the AI security task force, that would be interesting. But I do think this is a comment that applies regardless, but it seems to be heightened when we think about the use of AI as well.
Yep. Thank you for that, Stephen.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Fantastic. Okay. Well, seeing none, we will. I felt like I was doing a tap dance there for a minute, but thank you all. Thank you for taking time with us on a Friday afternoon, for following along with the work session, for giving us input and helping keep us up to date as well. This session is something that we do really, we hope it's a service and education and just staying up to date on what's happening in the entire ecosystem, but also a way for us to communicate, have a two-way conversation and hear your thoughts. It is not a speak now or never situation. It never is. We want to hear from you. So if you think of something later, if you have an idea, our emails are pretty easy. It's jessica@govramp.org, Leah, David, Alan @govramp.org, or you can email info and that will make its way to us as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you are a part of the pilot, or if you have interest in working with us to think about how we can better serve the agencies through this process. Please do reach out and know that we will look forward to those conversations ahead. And with that, I'll turn to the group. Anything else for the good of the cause? Fantastic. We will give everyone 15 minutes back in their day. That's a good thing. All right. Well, thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you again July. I don't remember the date. July 18th. Have a great one. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.